So you're all very welcome to the last week of the course. I'm afraid it's the last week. We'll kick off in a moment as people are still coming in. You're very welcome. There you go. There's Anne. Anne is in the centre 2 nights a week, or she was in the centre last night. She's back here online today. Welcome, Siobhan and Cleena and Roisin and Brendan and Liz and Eileen and John. I'll kick off in one moment. Hey, John. Okay, so why don't we kick off? So let me just get my notes set up here. Okay, so where is it? Sorry, everything's gone slow here on my computer. Okay, so you're very welcome to week 5 of this course. So this is the last week of the course, and what we'll do tonight is we'll follow the usual program. We'll begin with a meditation, a mindfulness and breathing meditation. We'll review the last week and we'll look at the home practice for the week. And I'll remind you of what the home practice was after the meditation and you know, what we're asking you to do during the week to keep the practice alive. We'll go into groups then to discuss that. And that'll take us up roughly to the tea break. There'll be 1 or 2 other little things there. And then after the tea break, Prasannadeva, who's back from illness, he hasn't been here, he's been away on solitary and then he wasn't well last week. So he's back again and he's going to be leading the Mandala, or discussing, in a way, the culmination of the spiral. We looked at the spiral last week. So we'll be looking at the Mandala of the 5 Buddhas. He'll explain what that is when we get there. And then we'll have some final groups to talk about what we want to do next or anything from tonight and what we want to take away and so on. Kind of like a reporting out in a way, you could say. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. And I see more people have just come in, so you're very welcome if you just arrived. Okay, so without further ado, why don't we just set up for a meditation? So we'll be sitting for about 15 or 20 minutes in meditation. And we'll do a period of the mindfulness and breathing, which I'll lead us through. So when we've made ourselves comfortable, when we're sitting upright and at ease, we can close our eyes then. And just relaxing into an experience of being here in this space, in this room, with these sounds we can hear. Opening the heart to the world around us, allowing it in, rather than trying to keep it out. Letting the world be. Starting to tune into how we feel physically. Being open to the contact of this body with the world around it. The contact of our body that we inhabit with the world. So that could be the feet in contact with the floor. Our sitting bones grounded in the cushion or chair supporting our weight. Our back in contact with the chair if we're in a chair. The temperature of the air on our skin. Particularly dwelling in the now in the stomach, the abdomen, the chest area. Really feeling into it, not looking down from the head, but trying to really inhabit it if we can, feeling the experience of the movement as we breathe in and out, feeling the feelings of tightness and relaxation in the muscles. Opening to whatever sensations like gurgling in the stomach or ripples of texture in the shoulders. Within this experience of our body, allowing an awareness of the breath to emerge. So the breath is already there. The body, our body that we inhabit is already breathing. And just letting the breath be at its own natural pace. As best we can. And being with the breath in the body, in the chest, in the diaphragm, in the stomach, rather than with your idea about it. And as we move into the mindfulness of breathing, in the first stage now, we add to the count after the out breath. So breathing in, breathing out 1. Breathing in, breathing out 2. And so on. When you reach 10, we start again at 1. But the main emphasis is on the breath. The count is just to help. And if you wander off, that's okay. Just coming back to the breath again, the breath in the body, and starting the count again from 1. And moving into the second stage now. We're just aware of the breath, initially dropping the count for a moment. And now adding the count before the in-breath. So it's 1, breathe in, breathe out. 2, breathe in, breathe out. And so on, with the main focus being on the breath. And on reaching 10, starting again at 1. And if you wander off, just coming back to the body, breathing, back to the breath, and the count again from 1. Not giving yourself a hard time, just accepting that you've wandered and coming back again to the practice. Now move into the third stage. We drop the count and we're just aware of the breath. Every in-breath, every out-breath. We can also be aware of things like the turning point where the in-breath becomes the out-breath and the out-breath becomes the in-breath. Where is that? I've just been really interested in the whole breath. Nowhere else to go. Nothing else to do. no one else to be. Just here with this breath, with this in-breath, with this out-breath. Now in the last stage, we become aware of where we can first feel the breath enter the body. So it might be on the lips or the nostrils or in the throat or in the nose. Spending a few moments just noticing where we first feel the breath enter the body. Now, as we breathe in and as we breathe out, noticing the sensations at this point of first contact as best we can. And if we wander off, just coming back again to the body and the breath, the sensations at the point of first contact. And then when you're ready, letting go of the breath, letting go of the practice, remaining still in posture. We'll let go of all effort and we'll just sit for a few moments, absorbing the practice, letting the mind go wherever it wants to go, but just sitting, watching it, being with it, but not lost in the story of it. Just sitting. When you're ready, then you can bring the practice to a close. You can start to reintroduce movement, wiggling fingers and toes. And in your own time, coming out of the practice. Okay, so that was the mindfulness of breathing. I hope you, those of you who have been, well, I hope you've all been learning to meditate or going deeper in your meditation practice. It's a very important supplement for the material of the course to help dwell in the more creative mind. So I'm welcome if you just joined us since that meditation began. A few people have there. Okay, so just to remind you of what we covered last week, and then we'll go into the breakout rooms. So last week we looked at the spiral path. So for the previous few weeks, we have been looking at the reactive mind, and we'd mentioned the creative mind, but this was really getting into the creative mind then more fully. So we started looking at the spiral. So the spiral starts with dukkha, with suffering, dissatisfaction. There's not quite a good word for it. And then there's not quite a great word here as well as shraddha, in the sense that there's not a particular one translation that we can use that's easy. So faith, confidence, a sense that there must be something more, a sense that there's a deeper meaning to things, not just than just the suffering. So when we have that perspective, dukkha turns into a sense of confidence that there must be more shraddha. And with shraddha, with confidence, with a sense of something more in life, comes joy, and so on upwards until we gain enlightenment in a state of ever increasing positive states of mind. Yeah. And I'll just show all the stages. So there's 12 different stages. I'm not going to remind us of them all here, but they're all, the main point is that they're all progressive. So each one deepens into an even deeper state. So each one is a deeper state than the one previously, and they naturally flower out of each other in a creative pattern, as opposed to the reactive pattern of the wheel, which just goes round and round and round. So dukkha flowers into confidence when the conditions are right. And when we sit in confidence, that flowers into joy, joy flowers into rapture, and all the way up. And once you reach number 8, knowledge and vision, we've gained a certain degree of, we've become so deeply in tune with life that we see the true nature of life, and transcendental wisdom starts to arise. And then we disentangle ourselves and we move swiftly to enlightenment, it said. Yeah. But the main really, the main one to remember, sorry to go backwards, is that out of dukkha, when we experience unpleasantness, when we experience painful Vedana, to go back to the previous week again's material, if we can keep a certain perspective on it, that it'll change, it's not the whole of life, there's more meaning to life, or maybe a perspective like, okay, I'm experiencing pain here, but other people experience pain too, and wouldn't it be great to help people out of pain? When we have that perspective, dukkha deepens into shraddha, a deeper sense of confidence in life, a faith that there is something more, and out of that comes a joyous life, and we keep walking up that path. So that's the main thing about last week that I was emphasizing. And then, sorry to be flicking around a little bit, but the home practice then. So read further in the book. This material covers up to page 42 in the book if you haven't read it already. And then I was encouraging you to read, the last 2 weeks now, I've been encouraging you to read more of the seminar extracts in the book. So these are the bits in the back, which are from Bhante talking more, Sangharakshita talking more informally about the Dharma. They're really, really good stuff. Meditate every day if you've already learned. And obviously, if you don't know to meditate, we were sending the resources in the email that you could do the guided meditations. And I was saying about this statement in the book: love where there's no reason to love. Try and bring this principle into your life and see how you find it. So it's a very important principle: love where there's no reason to love. And then just try and give space to experience positive states of mind, because one of the prerequisites of space. One of the prerequisites of the spiral is that you have space for things to naturally flower into something deeper. So space, in a way, these positive states of mind, they give you the flavor of the spiral. Yeah, they give you the flavor of the spiral. Okay, so we're going to go into groups now. So Oscar, are you all set up for the groups? Do you need anything?
Yeah, just to make sure, Vajrashura, did you say you're not going to take a group today, or that you will?
I'm going to stay out. Yeah,
okay. One moment.
So we'll just be a moment, guys, and we'll put you into groups. Yeah, and you can prepare how you get on during the week, or your excuses if you didn't remember anything. And is there anything that really struck you from the week, or anything you want to share? And you have about, as usual, about 2 or 3 minutes each. So Oscar, could you put those for like 14 minutes? Okay, so we have a few minutes. We did this last week, and might be interesting to hear. Maybe be interesting to hear back from 1 or 2 of the groups as well at this point. So if you want to, if one of the group leaders, for example, wants to let us know what you're talking about, or if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. If you don't mind your voice being heard in the recording, maybe you can always unmute yourself and ask your question. If you're a bit shy, we won't spotlight you unless you're a team member, or you can type your question in the chat. So we have about 5 minutes or so now for a bit of a plenary session. So anyone want to ask anything? Tom, looks like...
I'll ask you a quick question.
Yep.
I feel privileged that I was put in your group, or asked to take your group. Anyway, the changing of the chair on Sunday, is that going to be on Zoom? That was a question that came up with us, or is it just in person?
No, I've literally just before this course added the Zoom link to the website. Okay. To the link on the website, and I'll add it to the email tomorrow. So yeah, it is going to be on Zoom for those of you who can make it. Yeah.
Okay. And apart from that, in our group, it was people were very verbal, if you like. A lot of people got
in a good way, I hope.
Yeah, of course.
They weren't shouting at you or anything.
No, nobody was shouting at me. Anyway, no, there was fine, and there's people talking about being out in nature and all that, and how that helps with the creative mind. And yeah, I think people are enjoying this course. That's
Great. So the thing that Tom was referring to is that we're having a new chairperson on, the chair of the DBC. Nyanodara has been doing it. He has been doing it for about 12 years now, and Sadaya Sihi is coming in. She's going to be the next chair. And in fact, she'll be our first. We've only had 3 or 4 chairs in the history, because you usually chair for about 10 years. So she's the first woman chair, which is very exciting as well. So that's going to be happening this Sunday from 10 to 1. And you're very welcome to come along on Zoom or whatever. There'll be a lot of rejoicing. There'll be some meditation. There'll be some ritual. And if you're anyway interested in the Dublin Buddhist Centre and how it works, it'll be a very nice event to come to as well. Yeah, you can. I'll include the details of that on the email as well. I usually have to have my post-it here to write on all the things to include in the email that comes up. So anyone else, anything else from any of the groups, the group leaders, or any of the people want to go themselves? I won't spotlight you. Carol.
I think for me it's...
Oh, you're frozen. Sorry, Carol, can you start?
The thing that echoed most is how, yeah. So at least for me, but I think it was the whole group feel too, that how much the Buddhists love is, we were Prasannadeva, he was telling us about the power of the Buddhist loving kindness metta, how it's not permissive, or and it will set boundaries where it needs to be set. So I think this sentence, like love even where there is no reason to, is really inviting us to look at where it's hard to love, and how to love, because it isn't love in the way, that at least that I was taught, like love blindly and do anything for everybody, everything for everybody. So it in a way is love with truthfulness, and love with boundaries. And how different it is, and how revolutionary is a word that Prasannadeva also used. And it is, and just a week practicing it, things like habits I had changed. Yeah, I think that was an important thing for us, that the three of us echoed with, I think. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we touched into this a bit last week as well, that it's not a flabby, soft love that we're talking about in Buddhism. We're talking about love conjoined with wisdom, you could say. And I was going to turn off and on my camera just because it's a bit blurry. Sorry. Love conjoined with wisdom, and so it's the love that sees what's really needed, because it's got wisdom as well in it. And this kind of love, I've been on the end of love from people who are in our order a long time, in our movement in a long time, like order members who've been practicing the Dharma for 50 years. And sometimes that kind of love is almost terrifying, because it's so direct and it sees so deeply into what needs to be said, and it doesn't accept any kind of nonsense either, but it's very, very kind. It's very, very kind. And love, in some ways, the love of the Buddha must be slightly terrifying, because it would be incredibly opening and revealing, and really, really touch you very, very deeply indeed. It's not in any way weak. It's a different kind of love that we need to think about. Yeah. Does anyone else want to ask anything or say anything?
Well, one thing came up in our group that I thought I might ask for you to maybe I gave a certain response, but maybe you could elaborate on it, which was kind of like, well, what is this enlightenment sort of state anyway? And, like images, or beautiful as they are, of people meditating in forests for days on end, gives this kind of impression of it being very kind of like, or the possibility of it being quite separate from the world. And I responded with that, it's very much the Buddha himself interacted with the world, but it was like the world didn't impact him in the way that it would us on a day-to-day way. And then as a state of constant creativity, they were my two responses. But I thought maybe other people had a similar response, and you might be able to elaborate a little bit more.
I think what you said is good. Eileen, I saw you with your hand up. I'll come back to you in a minute as well. I think those two responses are good. I was asked this question last week when I was doing the first week of an introduction to Buddhism and meditation course. And the story I think of is that, the Buddha someone was asking, what about social engagement and trying to change the world if you're also trying to meditate and withdraw in a certain kind of way? And there is a certain degree of withdrawal from the world in this, because you're withdrawing from the silliness of the world. You're withdrawing from engaging with the world on its own terms. So sometimes you do need to physically withdraw. And the Buddha frequently went into the jungle and went away from everyone just to be on his own, But at the same time, then there's also stories of the Buddha, hearing that his clan and his mother's clan were about to have war with each other. And he went directly there and stood between them on the field of battle and stopped them from battling each other. He physically inserted himself into that situation and talked them both down from it, and managed to bring peace about again. They were arguing over water, which is not uncommon in India back then. So the Buddha was very, very engaged with the world as well. So I think the spiritual life, the Dharma life, is marked by these trends towards withdrawal. Well, it's marked by contradictory trends, and one of the main contradictory trends is that there is definitely one of withdrawal, but there's also one of engagement with the world. So you withdraw from the world, but you also engage in a different kind of way. So maybe what you could say is you withdraw in terms of taking things personally, getting really upset about things, getting really angry, getting into greed as a response to it, despair, all those things, but you engage with it on the basis of the creative mind, the mind that loves, the deeper perspective of the Buddha, those kinds of things. And I think for me, the Dharma really is both of those things. It's a withdrawal from silliness and an engagement with wisdom, if you see what I mean. I'm speaking quite generally there, but I'm sure you can chunk it down yourself, you know. And then Eileen, do you want to ask something before we wrap up?
I was wondering, do you see an overlap between Buddhism and Christianity at all, or do you see them as being quite separate?
Is there any particular aspect you're thinking of?
I suppose the main tenets of Christianity in its purest form would be to love your neighbor as yourself, and also to love God, and they're the two main tenets of it.
Yeah.
And Christianity obviously believes in a God, whereas Buddhism doesn't.
Yeah.
But the aspirations
in
the purest form are very similar to Buddhism.
Yeah,
I would think.
No, sure. So actually, like in Sangharakshita, who wrote the lecture we're working on, in his book on ethics, he talks about the golden rule, and it is the golden rule of many religions, you know, to treat your neighbor as yourself, to love others, and so on. And so there's very strong similarities in all the great religions, in Islam as well, in Judaism as well. You know, it is all there. And I think a lot of the time, I can't say this for every religion because I don't know every religion, but it seems to me of the great world religions, there is strong similarities in what they're trying to get at and what they're trying to express. The reason I'm a Buddhist is because I think Buddhism expresses that most clearly and most succinctly in a way that works for me most definitely, you know. And so there are strong similarities, and we have plenty of people who come along to our centre, but I won't say like pre-COVID, obviously, because we've been shut down a bit, who would be Christian. And I've done meditation classes with Christian monks and things like this, you know, as in I've taught them. And you know, some of the most impressive people I've met are from other religions as well. So, you know, I think a lot of people are trying to do the same thing. And at the same time, there are differences of expression and differences of ways of and I think in a way, all religions are probably a bit wrong, because as soon as you put anything into words, you falsify it. But for me, the reason I'm a Buddhist is that it's the most accurate of all the religions. Yeah, for me. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop before I offend or put my foot in it then. So just to say before the tea break, this is the last week, and just to remind you that the course has been done on a donation basis. So I think this is what I'm really happy about this. I know I'm really happy that we can just offer it to you guys for free. You know, I love offering the Dharma for free. And what we hope then, but it doesn't matter if people doesn't, well, it does matter if we don't, because we could go bust, but if we don't get any money back. But what we'd love is if people can give to the centre as well, you know. And many of you have done this already, so thank you for all of you who've given donations. And if you haven't given a donation and you're in a position to do so, I'd really encourage you to give, because it does allow us to continue to offer these things, to continue to keep the centre going, particularly as we come out of COVID. You know, we don't know what the year will hold, and in terms of recessions and all this kind of stuff. So if you can give, it'll really help us. You might like to consider giving a standing order, actually, a regular donation, which really gives us, you could give, like, instead of giving a big amount once, you could give a smaller amount regularly. And that really helps us to plan into the future as well. So Oscar's just put the link there. You can do all that at that link. And the suggested amount for this course, for the 6-week course, is 120, but you can give as much or as little as you want, and it's entirely up to you. So do give if you can. Okay, so what we'll do then is we'll take a break. You can always click on the link and go and donate. You can do it afterwards. I'll send it in the email. You can have a cup of tea, have a leg stretch, and let's meet back here ready to go at 7 minutes past 8. So it's 10 minutes time, and Prasannadeva will take over then. So 7 minutes past 8. So we'll see you in a few minutes. And if you have any questions, you can always stick them in the chat as well.
Yeah, so I'll get started. So I'm going to have a bit of input this evening, but I want to make sure there's plenty of time for us to sort of report out in our groups, to kind of reflect and consider about how we're going to take whatever we've gained from this course going forward. So I'll try and not get too much into the material or go too long with it. But at the same time, I'm talking about something quite in a way mysterious this week. I'm going to be talking about the enlightened mind, and particularly as represented by the 5 Buddha Mandala. But so when it gets into this realm, it starts getting much more poetic, much more in terms of images. So just to give you a sense of what's coming up. I thought it also would be nice just to do a little sort of recap. So the way I've sort of broke down the last 6 weeks is that it can be said that we've looked at sort of 3 different sort of minds, not necessarily 3 separate minds, but sort of 3 ways in which the mind functions. I'm sure you know 2 of them already, but we're going to start with the first one, the reactive mind. So in some ways you could say the reactive mind is looking at where we're coming from in terms of the reactive mind. So we looked at the reactive mind conceptually. We talking about the unreflecting, automatic, reactive mind that leads to suffering for ourselves and for others. It doesn't allow for our agency as human beings. We looked at the reactive mind in terms of images as well, so the non-conceptual, particularly the very involved, detailed image of the wheel of life. You might remember the hub of the wheel with the 3 animals, the pig, the hen and the snake driving this wheel of life. This very strong image there. We have the cyclical ascension and descension of those beings that are rising up and also coming down. We have the different realms of existence. You might remember the hell realm and the deva realm and so on. And then we also had the 12 links of conditionality. So lots of images here to communicating the reactive mind in a non-conceptual manner. Then the second type of mind that we looked at, obviously, is the creative mind. So we looked at the path, the way towards our goal, the goal being the ultimate creative mind, that of enlightenment. And we looked at that conceptually. We heard about the gap between our feeling tones, the sensation of feeling tones, and the craving that comes out of that, and trying to increase that gap between those things. We heard about mind reaction practice. We heard ideas about how to bring more awareness to our days, slowing things down for that creativity to grow stronger. We heard about the progressive steps or stages of the spiral path and how they augment each other rather than being successive. So one arising out of the other, as Vajrashura said earlier. But we also had the images of the creative mind. And in particular, I think the strongest images for me of the creative mind was the image of the Buddha in each of those different realms that we looked at. The Buddha that appears with presenting gifts. So we had the image of food and drink that will satisfy, the image of soothing Amrita nectar, the book that educates, raising our consciousness, the flaming sword of wisdom, the lute playing the melody of impermanence, the wandering mendicant or monk in the human realm. So all very, very striking imagery communicating the creative mind. And of course, the spiral in itself is an image. In comparison to the circular, cyclical wheel of life, the spiral, the image of ascension and progression, development. So that's what we've pretty much been looking at mostly over the past few weeks. But the third kind of thing that we touched upon a bit is the enlightened mind itself. So this is also touching upon the question that Dee rose, like, what is this enlightened mind? So I'm going to kind of explore that a little bit. So we in week 1, we touched briefly upon the Buddha and the enlightened mind. So we talked a little bit about how it's the complete removal of the craving, hatred, and desire. We talked about the image of the Buddha communicating something that's ineffable about enlightenment. And last week we looked at the knowledge and the awareness of the destruction of the poisons, that very last stage of the spiral. So let's look at the goal a little more thoroughly. Our understanding of what it is will inform how we practice. So I think it is important to kind of have some sort of relationship with what the enlightened mind is. It will influence the way in which we approach our practice. So I kind of broke this up into two different ways. So the enlightened mind is seen where we are. So we're currently unenlightened. So it has a particular look from where we're looking at it, our own particular perspective. You know, we might hear about the Buddha. We hear about his overcoming all craving, all hatred and delusion, how he is endlessly creative and is a ceaseless outpouring of wisdom and compassion. So we hear all these things, we get this sort of picture of the Buddha in our mind and what he's about. And we think, wow, that's what I want to become. That's what I want to move towards. This is the goal. And I mean goal with an uppercase G. This is the goal. And we ask, how do we do this? How can we become like the Buddha? And luckily we have a lot of teachings. So we hear about the path. We hear about the creative mind. And how it can take us onto the spiral path, and in time will help us we will achieve our goal. So in the Buddhist tradition, someone who dedicates their life to achieving this goal for the benefit of all beings is called a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva essentially means a being of awakening. And for us, from our current perspective, becoming a bodhisattva is sort of the goal of what Buddhism is. It involves lifetimes, if you take the traditional view, it takes lifetimes of practice, development, striving, overcoming the powers of the reactive mind. So nirvana or enlightenment from our perspective is basically the furthest point on this path within time. And it is totally free from the reactive mind. An image that I'm going to evoke is that of a mountain, but we're at the bottom of a mountain. So you can look up and see the peak in which you want to climb it, that you want to climb towards. So often it can seem quite daunting when you're just about this, you're just packed all your stuff in the car, you're walking, you got your sandwiches, you got all your hiking gear, you're walking through particularly in Ireland, you're walking through the bog, and if you're me, you'll probably fall over a few times in the mud. And then you're like, oh, we must be nearly there. It's like, no, we're just about to ascend now. That's where we're going. So it can be, even just getting to the base, to the point at which you can look up and see the goal, it can be quite something. It's quite an important part. But the image of where we're at, looking at this highest point, the zenith, the peak, and the pathways up to that. So, that's the peak from that perspective could be an analogy for enlightenment, a metaphor for enlightenment. So that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at enlightenment, the enlightened mind, is actually to look at it from the perspective of the goal, to look at it from the peak. So Sangharakshita, in his lecture, The Buddha and the Bodhisattva, Eternity and Time, he highlights that this way of thinking of enlightenment as a path isn't to be taken too literally, as we need to remember that the goal, enlightenment, happens outside of time. When one becomes enlightenment, one lets go of this concept of time as we understand it. So essentially, enlightenment is something that happens outside of time. It happens within eternity. So Sangharakshita here defines eternity as being totally outside of time. So this is different to just the endless stretching of how we perceive time, a prolonging of time to just on and on and on. It's something completely other than that. It's totally outside of time, altogether beyond time in the sense that we understand it. And we simply cannot comprehend anything existing outside of time because from our perspective. It's totally mysterious. So Sangharakshita says that the Bodhisattva represents the goal of Buddhism within time, and the Buddha represents the goal of Buddhism outside of time. So I'll say that again because I think that's quite interesting. Sangharakshita says that the Bodhisattva represents the goal of Buddhism within time, and the Buddha represents the goal of Buddhism outside of time. So how can we get a glimpse of what enlightenment looks like from that peak of the mountain? We were looking towards the peak, but when you get there and you look back down at the journey you've made, what's that experience? How can we get a glimpse of that? So another symbol attempting to express this ineffable nature of enlightenment is the mandala of the 5 Buddhas, or rather than saying the symbol is attempting to communicate it, we are attempting to be receptive enough to that symbol for it to communicate to us. So it's us doing the attempting, really. So I'm going to, you might be a little bit confused by this idea that the phrase that the Buddha is representing the goal outside of time, because over the previous few weeks we've explained, particularly on week 1, that the Buddha existed in North India around 2,500 years ago, and this isn't incorrect. This is obviously true. However, Buddhists over the millennia have come to understand that the Buddha exists on different levels. So we can say that the Buddha did exist historically as Buddha Gautama or Siddhartha Gautama, initially as a human being, and then becoming an enlightened being, becoming something much more than human. But he also exists on another level, on an archetypal level. So an archetypal level here is somewhere intermediate between time and eternity, a liminal space that we can occasionally access while in higher mental states, higher states of consciousness. So to use this imagery that I used of the mountain, here at the mountain peak, it's as much, you're as much embedded in the sky as you are with the earth. You know, it's as much sky as it is earth at that very, very peak of the mountain. So you're in that sort of in-between phase. So that's sort of the archetypal Buddha exists in this sort of dimension. He also exists outside of time totally, in eternity, that total clear blue sky, but I'll get to that later. We're more interested in this archetypal Buddha. So this archetypal Buddha has many different aspects. The enlightened mind can't be encapsulated in just one image or one thing. It has many aspects and therefore is represented symbolically as 5 different Buddhas, embodying a variety of different qualities. So I'm going to show an image in a moment of this mandala of the 5 Buddhas. And what I want you to do even before that is to just prepare yourself to be receptive to the image. And I ask you, notice which Buddha you find you're most attracted to as I talk through them, as I talk us through them. And just go with your gut feeling. Just go with the sort of your intuition, and just notice that for yourself, because we'll come back to that a bit later. We'll just notice which of these Buddhas sort of resonate with you for whatever reason. So I'm going to share the screen now, and I'm quite aware this will get rid of my notes. So I'm going to then go back to my notes. There we go. Cool. So hopefully you can see this image. I tried to find a higher resolution one, and I couldn't quite get one. So hopefully it's high enough resolution for you. So you can see from this image that these Buddhas are laid out in what is called a mandala form. So concentric circles moving outward from a central point. So mandalas appear all over the Buddhist tradition, and this is one particular mandala. So these Buddhas appearing to us in this mandala form are said to be made out of light and are manifesting out of the clear blue sky. Again, all of this has to be taken very metaphorically. I'm speaking symbolically and poetically a lot tonight, so don't take what I'm saying too literally this evening. Probably ever in my case. So in the center of the mandala, you see this white Buddha here. This is the Buddha Vajrashura. So the Buddha Vajrashura is the illuminator. So he's illuminating the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha. You'll see, you actually may not see, but his hands are in the teaching mudra, and they're holding a 8-spoked wheel, and this 8-spoked wheel is called the Dharma chakra, the Dharma wheel, and all those 8 limbs, 8 spokes represent each stage of the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the Buddha Vajrashura in the center of the mandala. He's white and is representing the turning of the wheel of the Dharma, the teaching of the Dharma. So if you go down then to the 6 o'clock, that's a horrible way to kind of compare, to talk about something as beautiful and symbolic. So if you just go downwards, the dark blue Buddha, this is the Buddha Akshobhya. So he's the imperturbable. He cannot be moved. He is wielding a Vajra. So this Vajra is a very common Buddhist symbol. You might recognize it from the name of one of our teachers, or one of the course leaders. So the Vajra is a diamond thunderbolt, which is communicates the kind of raw energy of the Dharma, of the teaching of the Buddha. It's indestructible, it's unstoppable, so to speak, this diamond thunderbolt. And so he's holding that in one hand, and in the other hand, he's touching the earth. So that's the earth touching mudra. And what this communicates is the Buddha's connection with the earth, the Buddha's solidity, his there's a story of when he was enlightened, just before his enlightenment, when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, Mara was kind of saying to him, was like, what claim do you have to become enlightened? You know, show me evidence that you have the right to claim to sit here and become enlightened. There's a general joke that Mara was the first ever lawyer. So he's like, who is your witness? So the Buddha touches the earth, and his witness appears in the form of this beautiful woman who's kind of the earth goddess, so to speak. And she says that she's witnessed the Buddha over lifetimes practicing, cultivating all these positive qualities, and that she could bear witness. So there's something in that mudra just that connects one with the earth, gives one confidence and solidity. So that imperturbableness of the Buddha Akshobhya, and he's associated with the East. Then we have at the very, very top, the ruby red Buddha, Amitabha, the Buddha of infinite light. So he has the Dhyana mudra, which is the sort of meditation mudra, where you have the 2 thumbs slightly touching, and the right hand is held by the left hand. And this is associated with meditation. So he's in deep, deep meditation. His warm red body is like that of the setting sun. So I think that's very a beautiful image, because the sun is something so powerful, and it gives so much life. It seems infinite to us. But when it's setting, we can look at it. It's attractive and warm, and we can look at it directly without burning our eyes. So it's approachable. So these are some of the qualities of Amitabha. He's the Buddha associated with the West, and he actually has a huge following. Out of all of these 5 Buddhas, he's the one with quite a big following. There's a whole Buddhist tradition in Japan associated with this Buddha Amitabha. So if you go to the left of the center, we have the yellow Buddha, Ratnasambhava, the jewel producing. So Ratnasambhava has boundless generosity, and this is expressed by his mudra of generosity. So he has his hand pointed outwards like this, a totally open hand, just giving without any inhibitions. And he's said to be like the blazing midday sun, and not because he's unapproachable, but rather the midday sun being at the zenith of the sky doesn't discriminate about where its light shines. So it tends to not cast a shadow, so to speak, because it's straight up in the sky. So it gives in equal measure. It doesn't discriminate in terms of who gets more light than the midday sun. And the Buddha Ratnasambhava embodies this endless giving without discrimination. And he is the Buddha associated with the south. We also have the emerald green Buddha on the right hand side to center. And this emerald green Buddha is the Buddha Amoghasiddhi, the Buddha of unobstructed success. So he has the mudra of fearlessness, sort of holding his hand up like this. And he also holds a double Vajra. So the Vajra that I mentioned Akshobhya had, he has a double Vajra, which is sort of the same thing twice, kind of. And it's a Vajra. And so what this says to me is that the combination of the fearlessness and the double Vajra, it's something around, if you hold the power of the Dharma, you have nothing to fear. You don't have to worry about failure because success is inevitable. The unobstructed success of Amoghasiddhi is that of the Dharma. If you practice the Dharma, success is just going to be inevitable. So those are the Buddhas. Now, again, I'm just going to reiterate. I'm just trying to give you a flavor of what these Buddhas represent. These are aspects of something mysterious, something in this archetypal realm between time and eternity. This is how the Buddha manifests in this space. So I'm just going to stop the slide now. Stop share. So just in case. So what I want you to do very quickly, pop into. I'm just interested to hear which Buddha you were most attracted to, which one resonated with you. So if you could pop into the chat, which Buddha resonated with you most, and it'd be just interesting to see. So whenever you're ready. The white Buddha, ruby red, green, blue, white, ruby. Yeah. Personally, I'd have to put in red as well. The Buddha Amitabha is the Buddha that I visualize most in my meditation practice. The one on top, Liz, that was the Buddha Amitabha, the red Buddha. Yeah. Great. It seems like lots of people are resonating with lots of different aspects of the enlightened mind. That's wonderful. Amitabha. All 5. Great. You get a gold star, G. Great stuff. Okay, it's lovely to hear that you're all sort of resonating on some level with one of the images, because usually there is one whose qualities we're most attracted to. And that doesn't mean that the enlightened mind doesn't have other qualities. It just means those are the ones we find most beautiful, which is one of the reasons why we have the multifaceted representation of the Buddha. So I'm just going to very quickly just mention the Buddha totally outside of time, this Buddha within eternity. So you could say, what about the goal as seen from the perspective of the sky, totally outside of time? There is no mountain. There is only clear blue sky, no matter which way you look. And in this sense, the Buddha is seen as reality itself. The Buddha is reality itself from this perspective. I'm just going to read a quote from a famous sutra called the Diamond Sutra. It's called a Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Those who by my form did see me, and those who followed me by voice, wrong the efforts they engage in. Me, those people will not see. From the Dharma should one see the Buddhas. From the Dharma bodies comes their guidance. Yet Dharma's true nature cannot be discerned, and no one can be conscious of it as an object. So that's quite mysterious, I think. I'll read it again one more time. Those who by my form did see me, and those who followed me by voice, wrong the efforts they engage in. Me, those people will not see. From the Dharma should one see the Buddhas. From the Dharma bodies comes their guidance. Yet Dharma's true nature cannot be discerned, and no one can be conscious of it as an object. So, in a way, it's not worth me saying much more about the Buddha in this sense, Buddha as reality, Buddha outside of time. Words cannot really communicate it. But the fact that it is utterly mysterious and cannot be understood by the intellect, it should be said that it can be understood by the imagination. So it is worth reflecting on, even though the practical applications of such a thing may not be very apparent. But I think it is worth being receptive to those sort of mysteries in your practice. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick reflection now, and then just have a couple of final words before we go into our groups for about 10 minutes. And then so if you want to just set up for a short reflection, if you want to get into meditation posture, that's fine. And I'll just, but if you just want to sit comfortably, that's fine as well. So just try to be as relaxed and alert as you can. For a moment, just getting a sense of your body, maybe the points of tension, and just see, can you relax any unnecessary holding? Noticing the out-breath. See if you can let go any more with the out-breath. Noticing any pleasant sensations in the body. Just allowing them to grow. If you just sit now and being receptive to the thoughts or words that you're going to drop into your mind for this reflection practice. So over the past 6 weeks, we've looked at the reactive mind. We've looked at the creative mind. The wheel of life. The spiral path. And this all culminates in the image of the 5 Buddha Mandala. So rather than trying to take in all the Buddhas, just bring to mind that Buddha that you found yourself most attracted to, whose qualities resonated with you. Maybe it was just the color, or the name, or the hand gesture, the mudra. And what does this communicate to you about how to cultivate more creativity in your life? How can you take what you've learned from this course to become less reactive, to cultivate the creative mind, and in time to embody some of those Buddha qualities within yourself? And also, we can set the intention of taking whatever we have gained from this course and using that for the benefit of all beings, all sentient life. So just noticing whatever comes up, trying to be receptive to that for the last couple of minutes. And whenever you're ready, bringing the reflection to a close. Okay. So just a few final words before we go into our breakout group. You may be asking yourself at the end of a 6-week course, well, what next? And that's a very good question, because it is very important to maintain momentum with these things. It's a bit, I think, whatever sort of spiritual practice you're doing. I think if you're not sort of working on that momentum or sort of riding the wave, you're probably going backward a bit. It's a bit like a shark. You have to keep moving in order for it to survive. And you know, the Dublin Buddhist Centre exists to help people to maintain that momentum, to keep engaging with the Buddhist teachings in whatever way that people want to. And so I do just really encourage you to, maybe even tonight after this course, after this class, I should say, is to think about what are you going to do next, and maybe even book something if you like, or maybe even just sign up to our mailing list or whatever that is. We do have upcoming courses. So we do have, let me just make sure I don't, I don't know how to get out of full screen there. Oh well, I'm sure I can remember. Is the so we have for those of you who want to remain online, we do have a fully online course coming up called Transforming Work, and that is going to be a 4-week course on Tuesday evenings, and I think that starts on the 12th of April. We'll put all this in the follow-up email, so you don't have to remember all this. So that's going to be looking at how to bring Buddhist principles into your working life, which is often the case. What's the phrase? A practice in loving when there's no reason to love is often in a work context. So, you know, if that's something that sort of resonated with you and you found that your work was that place where there was very little reason to love, maybe the Transforming Work course might be something you're interested in. We have a Buddhism and Science course, and maybe Vajrashura would like to say something about that. Oh, thanks, Oscar. Oscar sent a link there as well. Yep, Vajrashura, if you like to say.
Yeah, so my background is in science as well as Buddhism. So I'm a theoretical physicist by training. So we're looking at all the ways that Buddhism and science are both both quests for truth. So the parallels, and it'll be quite an interesting course going through different aspects of different aspects of science, and then matching them up in some ways at aspects of physics, or aspects of Buddhism as a stepping off point at least. Now it's an in-person course only for 5 weeks in the Buddhist Centre on Tuesday nights, isn't it, Prasannadeva? So if you can come along to the centre in person, that's going to be on Tuesday nights, starting in the middle of April, I think it is, or early April.
It's also the 12th of April, so unfortunately you can't do both those courses. You'll have to make a call. Which one you prefer?
Can I ask a question? Could it possibly be recorded, the Buddhism and Science? I would really be interested in that, but it's a bit hard for me to get on site.
Let me have a think about that. It could be a bit awkward. I think I might have ran it before online, so I could make the recordings available to you if you wanted.
Yes, please. That would be really nice. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I ran it before online, but I'll check. I'll check it and I'll send it out. Okay, great.
I'd be interested too, Vajrashura.
I'm sorry?
I would be interested too in hearing a recording of that one.
Okay.
I have difficulties.
No worries. I can't quite see. What's your name? Sorry.
Eileen O'Mahony.
Eileen. Okay. I'll just send it to the whole bunch, but do come on the course if you can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So, those are sort of the 2 courses we currently have planned, but we do have other things coming up. So we also have the chair handover on Sunday. So do come along to that if you can. As Vajrashura said, he'll put details in the email about that. There's also an online Triratna Day. So that's we're part of the Triratna Buddhist movement. And there's kind of going to be an online celebration of that movement as well. So that's going to be on Saturday, the 9th of April. So that's fully online as well. And so I think that, you know, there will be more things coming up. So I'll just leave it at that. But I really do recommend you sign up to our weekly email, because as courses are coming up, they'll be listed on that. Also, you can like us on Facebook and Instagram, and we will often post about upcoming events and courses there as well, so you'll be kept up to date on that. And so, you know, do come along to things. We also have our drop-in events now. So the Tuesday evening pujas are now back in person and also online. So sorry, that's meditation and pujas. We have a meditation and followed by a ritual. And on Sunday, it's a puja in the mornings, so at 11 o'clock on Sundays. So lots you can do to engage with the centre on a regular basis or on a course basis, and online and in person. So maybe just take 1 minute to think about that, and then we'll go into our groups for 10 minutes. The time is shorter than I had hoped, but I think it's still good to get a good 10 minutes in our group to report out. So yeah, so in your group, maybe just say, what are you going to do next? And if there's anything really clear for you that you want to take into your life from this course, say that as well. And we'll come back then at 9 o'clock and just say a quick goodbye. I think this time is short, but yeah. So whenever you're ready, Oscar, to set the groups going. So because time is up, what I suggest is we bring the class to a formal close, but I also invite you to stay on. I'm not going to disappear, and I imagine Vajrashura won't disappear straight away either. If you have any questions or comments that you want to share before we disappear, but I'm just conscious that people might have things they need to do. So what I might just very, very quickly for the last minute is to formally give up all the good deeds that we've done on this course through a short ritual called the transference of merit and self-surrender. So I might ask Vajrashura if he would do the response, and you can participate along with Vajrashura if you wish, and then we'll be formally finished after that. So, may the merit gained.
May the merit gained.
In my acting thus.
In my acting thus.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences.
My personality throughout my existences.
My possessions.
My possessions.
And my merit in all three ways.
And my merit in all three ways.
I give up without regards to myself.
I give up without regard to myself.
For the benefit of all beings.
For the benefit of all beings.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Are serviceable in many ways.
Are serviceable in many ways.
To the infinite number of beings.
To the infinite number of beings.
Inhabiting limitless space.
Inhabiting limitless space.
So may I become.
So may I become.
That which maintains all beings.
That which maintains all beings.
Situated throughout space.
Situated throughout space.
So long as all have not attained.
So long as all have not attained.
To peace.
To peace.